Recording is on.
Hello, guys. Thanks for joining our section today. In today's section, we're going to look at project definition and scoping. Today, you guys gonna learn the project definition, project scope, scope creep, software development life cycle, and many others as well. So now, what is a project scope? This is a good question. Every project has a scope that has been determined by the leadership and decision makers, the key players. In every project, the leadership, the decision makers, the key players, they define high level scope. As a BA, your role and your responsibility is to understand the scope. The project scope is the key to every project. There are two parts to scope. The first one is the project scope. This is the work that needs to be accomplished, to deliver a product, service, or result with its specified features and function. While product scope, this is the features and the functions that characterize a product, service, or result. Now, guys, what is the difference between project scope and the product scope? So the differences is that project scope, this is the work that needs to be accomplished. This is the work that needs to be delivered, the product that needs to be delivered to the customers. While the product scope is the features, is the functionality that the product must have. That's the difference, guys. Okay? And now, when you look at project scope, we have different types of project scope. A project scope can be resources. How many resources do we need to help us to accomplish this implementation? What is the budget? How much are we willing to put together? How much are we willing to budget for this project? Do we need up to $10 billion? Do we need up to $5 million? Do we need $500,000? So this is a scope. Also, scope. The actual scope of the project is a scope. What needs to be done? Are we trying to enhance the current application, or are we trying to develop a new technology solution? Quality too is a scope because we need to make sure that we have a certain quality of product. We have to build a certain quality of product before we can push it to the market. Time and schedule is also a scope. We have to ensure that the time and the schedule meet the timeline. Risk as well when we plan ahead is a scope as well. So I want you guys to understand all this and the differences between project scope and product scope. Now, what is project scope creep? As a BA, you need to understand what is scope creep. It's a term which refers to the incremental expansion of scope of a project. Scope creep is a risk to every project. Scope creep often causes budget and schedule overruns. Scope creep can come from the customer, requests for new features, or from the developers. Features they just know the customer want. So as a BA, you must ensure that you manage scope creep very well. Otherwise, you won't have a successful project. This is a tip, all right? Now, let's look at the project phases. The Software Development Lifecycle, SDLCs. We have 8 Phases of software development lifecycle: the project initiation, the requirement gathering, the analysis, design, deployment, testing, implementation, or deployment and maintenance. Now let's go into detail to all these eight phases. So the project initiation. So this is the stage whereby the stakeholders, the key decision makers, they come up with the project initiation, what they're trying to achieve. Are they trying to enhance the current system, or are they trying to bring in a new product that will help them to, to improve their market, or to improve their sales, you know. And also the project initiation, this is a stage whereby the leadership, they will assign a project manager. And in some projects, some decision makers will, ask the BA to come up to help them to develop a business cases. So the business cases is the justification um, that says, okay, we're good to go with this implementation, or we're good to go with this project. Now, the second stage is the requirement gathering phase. This is the phase whereby the business analyst will gather requirements, will facilitate a call between the business stakeholders and the developers. So the scope and the objective of this call is for the BA to understand the needs and to gather the pain points from the customers, and to translate the business requirement into a detailed level, so that the development team can be able to implement based on the business needs. Also, during the requirement gathering phase, this is a phase whereby the business analyst will document all the requirements, and it will make sure that every requirement is validated. It's you want to make sure that if the requirement is straightforward, if it's testable, if it's complete, if the requirement align to business needs. Now, the third phase is the analysis phase. This is a phase whereby the business analyst will do his own homework by conducting some analysis, impact analysis on some of the requirements, to making sure that it will not break any codes in the current system, or it will not impact any design for the current application. Okay, and BA work hand in hand with the developers, the technical lead, to ensure that this is successful. On number four, which is the design, the BA work with the architectural designer and making sure that the design conform to business strategic goals and objectives. The role of a BA is to ensure that design um, align with the requirement, the design align with the business requirement, and also design align with all other requirements. All right. So after the design has been completed, everybody sign off, the requirement has been completed, then the next stage is the development stage. This is the stage whereby the developers, they will start the coding, they will start implementing the coding, they will start putting the coding together. And during this stage, if there is any question, if there's any clarification, the developers, they will come back to the BA and ask him or her questions, just to clarify some few things. And the BA must ensure that it provide feedback to the developers. After the development has been completed, the next stage is the testing stage, is testing phase. The testing phase is the phase whereby the QA, the quality assurance team, they will test all the features. They will ensure that the requirements are tested, and also the BA facilitate the call with them, with other stakeholders. I mean the customers. The BA coordinate the user acceptance testing, and the customer test the product, and they will ensure that all the requirements they provided to the BA has been implemented based on their needs and wants. After the testing has been done, then the next phase is the implementation. Sorry, is the deployment. The deployment phase. This is where the codes, the features, they are deployed in production. This is the stage whereby the customers they can go online, they can start working on the application, and they'll start providing their feedback. If there's any issue, that is, if there's any issue, the BA will coordinate with the technical team, and they will resolve all issues during the maintenance phase. So I want you guys to understand the SDLC phases. This is very, very crucial. As a BA, you need to understand the software development life cycle. So now, what what is the scope? As a BA, you need to understand the scope. It is imperative that you know the scope of your project before you begin gathering requirements. You may well be given requirements which are outside the scope of the project. Those requirements should be documented and presented to the decision team. They will either adjust the scope or move them to a future release. As a BA, you need to understand that. So now, what is deliverables? As a BA, you need to understand what you're trying to deliver. A deliverable is a tangible or intangible good or service produced as a result of a project that is intended to be delivered to a customer, either internal or external. A deliverable could be a report, a document, a software product, a mobile application product, an iOS application product, an Android hybrid or native app application, a server upgrade, or any other building block of an overall project. Each phase of the process produces at least one deliverable. Each deliverable should be completed during the appropriate phase. The phase cannot be considered complete until deliverables have been approved. Each life cycle of the software development life cycle has a deliverables, and you as a BA, you must ensure that uh, all the phases of the project life cycle you are involved except the development phase. The only time you need to work on the development phase is when the developers needs a clarification to some of the requirement or design. Okay. Now, BA role in the software development life cycle. As a BA, during the software development life cycle, you are involved in analysis of requirements. You are involved in a high-level project plan. At times, a BA work as a PM, and also sometimes they work as a Scrum Master. So a BA, they wear a lot of hats. They conduct impact, cost-benefit analysis. Also, BA, they participate in the UAT, user acceptance testing, regression testing, sanity testing, the review test cases with the keyways, and also the BA, they conduct the requirement analysis, they prepare UML diagrams, use cases, they document user stories in different tools like a Jira, like VSTS, So as a BA, you need to understand that. And also during the software development life cycle, the BA also clarify requirements, design with the team and with the developers when it's needed. And last but not the least, I mentioned earlier, they participate in the UAT, user acceptance testing. Okay. So now this is a summary of our section today. So the BA and the project team have one shared goal: to carry out the work of the project for the purpose of meeting the project objectives. Every project has a beginning, a middle, and this move the project toward completion and on ending, either successful or unsuccessful. A standard project typically has the following four major phases, each with its own agenda of tasks and issues. I'm talking about the initiation, the planning, implementation, and closure. Taken together, these phases represent the path a project takes from the beginning to its end and are generally referred to as the project life cycle. Now, let's do this exercise together, folks. I'm sure you guys really enjoyed this section today. You have been assigned as a new BA for an upgrade project for ATM application enhancement in your organization. As a new BA for this project, how do you determine your customer scope of work? What do you think, guys? So you as a BA, this is how you're gonna determine your customer. Your customers are your end users. These are the people that use the application. So your customers are general public people like me, like you. Those are your customers. They utilize it. They go there. They utilize. They receive money. They deposit money, and the business are also your stakeholder. They are stakeholders. They're also their customers. But the difference is that the business, they are the one that is sponsoring the project. They're bringing money out. So the customer, the end users are the people that they use the application. So if you want to determine them, you can talk to your boss. Okay, if you're involved in any other project that is different from the ATM application, the first person you need to approach, maybe your colleague that is maybe the SME or the project manager or the your supervisor. These are how you're gonna uh determine your customer scope of work. So you determine them, you understand what they want by reaching out to the customers or reaching out to the business, understand what they want, understand their pain point. Because if you can determine the customers, how are you going to determine the scope of work? So you determine the customers, you determine the project sponsors, you schedule a call with them, understand what they want, understand their pain point. That's how you determine the scope of work. The first thing is for you is to first determine to identify the stakeholders. The second thing is you can schedule a call with them, understand what they want, understand their pain point. That's how you determine your customer scope of work. I hope you guys enjoyed this section today. Please, if you want to join our classes, reach out to us, send us an email. Please subscribe to our channel, and thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye.